All right. Hi, everybody. So thank you so much for joining us for our diversity series, Lead, Grow, Deepen. And for those that don't know me, my name is Cheryl Allen, and I support nutrition, behavioral science, food choice architecture, and allergens for GAG. GAG is Guggenheimer Google. So it's the work with allergens that leads us to our guest today, who is Dr. Renee Matthews. So Dr. Renee is a speaker, blogger, influencer, coach, and leader in the healthcare industry. She lives an amazing life with severe asthma and food allergies. She's also the author of the book, Mommy, I Can't Breathe, and works with FARE, which is the Food Allergy Research and Education Organization. Dr. Renee is a leading expert in food allergens, having lived with them her whole life. She also hosts the Ask Dr. Renee Show, where she is an MD on a mission to help people live the life that they deserve. So with that, let's give Dr. Renee a super warm welcome. And thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Renee.
Thank you so much for having me. And Cheryl, I loved that introduction. I need to send that to others.
Absolutely. And so before we dive in, I wanted to share some perspective with you on what our teams have been going through recently. So for our GAG team, we're in the process of transitioning to a new allergen policy. And that's going to call out the top 8 allergens plus sulfur in our cafe spaces. And so this will be a really big change for our users, the Googlers, and also for our teams. There's been a ton of tactical information that has come towards our culinary teams and our ops teams regarding, new protocols, trainings, SOPs, signage, everything. They've seen a lot of me, too much of me lately. So yeah, they've been hearing a lot about allergens. And so to everyone watching, you hear me talking about signage, SOPs, just know that this conversation is going to be none of that stuff. So today we're really focused on, having a conversation about people and helping us really get out of SOPs and into the lives of others, and to help us really see, at a bird's eye view, why this work is so important. So that's the plan. That's what we're doing. And also to everyone listening, please ask questions if you have any for Dr. Renee as we go along. We want you to be part of this conversation. We'll also have a Q&A after, but feel free to chime in as we're going along. So with that, let's dive in with Dr. Renee Matthews. So I wanted to start off first with getting to know you a little bit better and a little bit about your background. So can you tell us a little bit about how allergens have impacted your life and how that experience informs what you do today?
So as I say, quote, Lady Gaga, I was born this way. My mother had me, and then she breastfed. And then when it was time to start supplementing with cereal, she tried oatmeal. And every day I got sick. Every single day I got sick. And so she said, you know what? This girl is probably allergic to this. My mother's a respiratory therapist. And so she recognized that I was having asthma attacks when I had these foods. And so she said, let me check into this. And so sure enough, she was right. And it wasn't just oatmeal, it was oatmeal, it was eggs, it was a whole lot of things at that time. But right now it's oatmeal, eggs, nuts, seafood. I cannot smell it cooking, nor can I eat it. Wheat, rye, barley, chocolate, and citrus fruits.
Wow.
So, so obviously, with all of those allergies, it has impacted my life. But as you said, I am living an amazing life, even though I've lived in other countries. I travel the world. I've done a whole lot of things. I eat everywhere I go. I just make smart decisions.
Hmm.
And so that's what led me to do this because I said, a lot of people have allergies now. It's not like Renee's the only one and I'm the only person and people, and I don't ask people to, accommodate for me because I'm by myself. But when it started being more and more people, I said, I think I could help people to understand, you know, how this works and how we could do this better. We have a project with Fair in the kitchen with Chef Alicia and Dr. Renee. Chef Alicia is my sister who is a trained chef, and she knows how to cook for me because she cooks for me. And so she knows, and she's grown up with me, so she knows all of the substitutions my mom did and how I could eat things. And so, why not show that to other people that you can still enjoy breakfast food and you can enjoy brunch and, all these great things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love those stories because it really highlights how, permanent and lifelong allergens really are. I mean, you've been dealing with these things since you were born when you were eating, oatmeal cereal. So, we deal with our users, our Googlers who are adults, but it's easy to forget that, this is something that is impacting their lives, not just when they're at work, but just all the time
Yep.
and have been with them for so long. And that kind of leads me to a second question, a little sidebar question, but you mentioned that a lot of people have allergens. Is this something that's becoming more common, do you know? Or is it
It is.
changing?
And I think they are actually doing research, but I know I've spoke to my allergist about it because I was like, this influx and, what's going on? And he said, you're right, it is. And me and him and some other people are thinking that it might have something to do with the fact that we have so many things in our food.
Mhm.
We're not eating whole foods the way that we did, that not even we, but a lot of people did way, way, way long ago. And there's so many chemicals and,
Yeah.
and all sorts of preservatives and all this stuff. And so they think that it has something to do with that. And then think about it, you have the organic section and then you have the section we don't know what those animals were fed. All of that might play a part too. There's a whole thing with, puberty being earlier too. Just all these different things I think attribute to what goes in our body and what affects us. So I think that's why we're seeing such an influx.
Yeah, that's super interesting to think about, the food system as a whole and the impact that it's having on, our bodies. It's kind of crazy to think about. Um, so going on to my next question. So we were talking about, how allergies impact you for your whole life. How important is the relationship that you have with the restaurants where you order food?
So because of the way that I live, I am a creature of habit. And so many people do not like to hang around me because I will probably go to the same place all the time because I know I can safely go to these places.
Yeah.
So it's really important. There are certain chains that it's like, okay, I know wherever I am in the country, and then sometimes even in the world. Like when I lived in England, I went to Fridays because I knew that I could eat at Fridays, TGI Fridays. I knew I could because I ate there at home, and they had the same menu.
Hmm.
And I know that I worked in a franchise in food, and I knew that, what you serve here, you pretty much are going to do everywhere else. McDonald's is another place that I go to, so it's really important for me that I go to regular places that I know. Now, mom and pop places that I go to, um, I know. I know this, I've spoken to them, I've read the menu, I've asked the questions. So there I don't have to, I don't have to do it again. And then if I keep going back, they know I'm a frequent diner. And so they know and they'll tell me, oh, Renee, we changed this, or, if they've changed something. I had an allergic reaction at a restaurant in Chicago, and after that incident, it never will happen again because they know they had the list now. It's attached with my name because I am a frequent diner. So when I make reservations or when I show up, they automatically, as soon as they print my ticket, it comes up. They
Mhm.
have the list, and then they say, oh, we have a list that says, and so even because I have a different waiter pretty much every time, even though they're different waiters, the list has already been written out. And so if they have a new item on the menu, they'll tell me, they'll say, oh, you're allergic to such and such. That's one of the garnishes for this dish. We'll make sure we leave it out or something like that. And
Mhm.
so for me, that makes me feel very comfortable. And I don't have any anxiety eating out because I know either I make sure I ask questions or I make sure I eat something that there's no remote possibility that I could have, a problem with it.
That makes total sense. I feel like there's a level of, total transparency that needs to happen on both ends, right?
Yeah.
As the customer and the service provider. So,
And the service
communi
providers, not to cut you off, the service providers need to educate the staff.
yeah.
The staff needs to know. I have went to restaurants and I ask, I'll ask, is the chicken fried in the same oil as the fish?
Mhm.
And the blanket statement will be yes. Okay, well then we're not eating there. But if you just understood the reason I'm asking the question, you would understand that I'm talking about, did you take a piece of fish out and then put in the chicken in the same exact fryer?
Right.
That's what my question is about, and so it's really about education. And most, like I said, because my sister is a chef, I call her a food snob. She's not allergic to anything. So she's very particular. We travel together a lot and she wants to go to nice places. So when you go to nice places, they usually do know these things. It's
Mhm.
when you go to smaller,
Yep.
cheaper places, they may not know, and you got to be very careful.
Yeah, I think that really highlights the importance of, that relationship between you and, wherever you're dining. And, for us, our users have an incredible amount of trust, in what we do. And that trust is something that's earned every day. We hope
Hmm.
that there's not going to be that circumstance where you have an incident and then, as a consequence, there's heightened awareness around it. We hope that that happens all the time, without it being kind of instigated by an incident. But I think it's awesome and amazing that you've built that trust with certain places and can feel comfortable, dining out and, having a great food experience.
Yeah.
I think for everybody on this call, like we're all about food and
Right.
everybody should be able to have, those experiences, whether or not they have allergies. So I think that's awesome. So I'd love to focus a little bit on your partnership with FAIR. So again, FAIR is the Food Allergy Research and Education Organization. And as background, we work with FAIR for our allergen training program. So we developed a program, and then they give us the FAIR check to make sure that it fits all these different pillars of theirs. So how do you work with FAIR now, and how has this partnership evolved in the time that you've been affiliated with them?
So now Fair, when I discovered them, I thought that this is the greatest thing ever. I never had anything like this when I was a child. This is awesome to families that have to deal with this. But Fair, we sat down and we talked about it. And because I am a content creator, and of course, I always brag about my sister. I told him about the amazing chef Alicia, foodie engineer, and I said, my sister, she cooks every day. She makes food for us. And they said, wait a minute, what about a cooking show? And my sister does have cooking videos, and so we did this cooking show, and it was really important, obviously, that we make sure that the foods we created were top 8 friendly, and we also give alternatives because there are a lot of our friends and family that are not allergic to food, but they just wanted to watch the videos. And then they were like, oh, well, I can still eat that and it's going to taste great. I was like, yeah, you can put such and such in it. So, yes, we've made substitutions so that they're okay for me to eat, but you don't have to make those substitutions. And so I think that in the future, I hope to to create other amazing content that'll help people understand that just because you are allergic to things doesn't mean you cannot enjoy food.
Yes.
Because I mean, like I said, I like to eat. So I recently lost a whole lot of weight, but I still say I am still a fat girl inside. And I enjoy what I enjoy. I may not have the expansive palate of my sister, the chef, but I do enjoy what I enjoy. And I think that Fair going forward, if we can just show people, because there's so much anxiety around parents allowing their kids to, go to restaurants, go out of the country to travel without them,
Mhm.
and then getting jobs. They're like, oh no, he can't work here because everyone can bring their lunch to work, and you don't know what they're eating. All these are all the concerns that I've seen parents have
Yeah.
in different Facebook groups and in passing. And I'm like, no, no, no. And Fair can help them to calm those nerves. And I'm excited that you guys worked with them, so you definitely will understand exactly what has to be avoided and why. And yeah.
Yep. When I started with this allergen work, I didn't know much at all about allergens. And I'm super grateful to FAIR because there's just so much information on their website and it's incredibly accessible. So they do amazing work. And I want to dig around there a little bit more to figure out or learn more about their research because I think
Yes.
it's just awesome. So I am curious for the people who are on this call, if any of you guys have food allergies. So if you could put it in the chat. I guess, I manage the allergen program, but I've never really asked, if any of our team has this. And, we serve people with allergens all the time, but curious if anybody, deals with this, in their life on a daily basis. So more just curious. And yeah, so Erica says her mom developed an allergy later in life. That's interesting. Yeah, I think Dr. Renee, you're talking about how some allergens, when people are born, they have
Right.
it their whole life, but in some circumstances, it's
And I
something
feel
that
bad for those
later.
people because, like, for me, people are like, "Oh, I feel so sorry for you. You can't eat chocolate." I've never had chocolate, so I always tell people, "You don't miss what you never had." It's not a big deal that I've never had an orange.
Totally.
I've never had one, so I'm okay with it. You know?
Right. And
Yeah.
your
So
sister's a chef, and I'm sure is whipping up these amazing things, and there's no reason it's chocolate.
right. So yeah. So exactly, she's allergic to crustaceans. I understand. Shellfish, mollusks, newly
Oh.
cashews.
Oh, I didn't
Okay.
know that, Megan. Muley cashews, huh? Well,
Yeah,
awesome.
so I mean, I feel bad for those people. There's a lady that had me on her podcast, and she, in adulthood, became allergic to bacon. I wanted to cry. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry," because she knows what bacon tastes like. I felt
Mhm.
so bad.
Yeah, it's definitely tough when you get that taste and then, your body says, "No more."
Exactly.
That's tough. Um,
Oh,
so
Lauren's very familiar. Her brother had the top 8.
yep.
So Lauren's like my sister. My sister was my taste tester. So if my parents, because my parents worked they worked and me and my sister would be together, she would taste things for me. And then
Mhm,
she would let me know. She might not tell me, she couldn't tell me because she's younger. She couldn't say, Renee, this has such and such in it, but she would say, you can't eat that, Renee. And I
mhm.
trusted her and she was right pretty much all the time.
That's awesome that you had her with you for support. Alex, I didn't know that you couldn't do mangoes. That's interesting too. Alex is one of our directors of culinary.
Okay.
And Randall says, me too. Wow.
Wow.
Okay, Alex. So lots of allergens. And Brendan. Okay, cool. Well, I will lead into my next question. So before working with FAIR, what has been your experience in working with groups that may not necessarily have had access to the type of information that, FAIR is providing?
It's awful. They are so either one, they have never been diagnosed with an allergen. So they just were told, oh, you shouldn't eat that, or so and so should avoid that, but never explained this, you're allergic to this, or this is what's going to happen if you eat it.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, in Black and brown communities, oftentimes due to the health disparities, maybe there is not a allergist in the neighborhood, or maybe no physician ever told you that you need to go see an allergist. And that is so sad. But I've literally talked to people over and over who are like, I was never, they went to the pediatrician, of course, but they never ever told them to go to an allergist, and they didn't even know that these amazing doctors existed. And
Wow.
so that was frustrating to me. And then if you don't go to an allergist, then your pediatrician is great, but and your general practitioner, your PCP, your family medicine, they're wonderful, but they don't have that great information that the allergist would have because they've attended conferences that have had FAIR there and other wonderful organizations like FAIR. They give them all this great insight. So, like the Food Allergy Expo is an expo I attended one time, and I was blown away. There were so many ways. Like that's the first place that I ever heard about sun butter, and this was before sun butter was in everybody's grocery store. It was only sold at Whole Foods at the time. So this was early, early on. And I never heard of it. And you should have seen the man trying to convince me to try it. I was like, no, sir. And little things like that. Can you imagine? Sun butter's only at Whole Foods. Whole Foods were not in, now they're in neighborhoods, but they were not in urban communities. Now they are, but they weren't. So then they wouldn't have access to this. And those kids miss out on a PB&J,
Yep.
which
Totally.
is actually a very, economically, that's a great thing to serve kids if if you're in a low income. So I think that unfortunately, these people miss out on all these amazing things because, can't afford it or don't know about it at all.
Yeah.
And now that we do have Whole Foods, like I said, in the urban communities, Whole Foods does take government assistance, and so they could purchase these things. But if you don't know, you have no idea what that is on the shelf to even go buy it.
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone needs access to information and support. Like food deserts, are
Yeah,
so incredibly common. And as you were saying, cost is such a major factor for so many people. And yeah, you go into Whole Foods and, the items that have those health claims of like gluten-free or nut-free, those are often the pricier items.
yeah.
So I can definitely
And
understand.
if you don't know what that means, I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
like gluten free came out, and I didn't realize it had something to do with wheat because this was it was a
Mhm.
long time ago. And when I finally researched, I was like, oh, it says I'm allergic to wheat, barley, and rye. I wonder if it's, but I don't have a gluten allergy, but it's just those things that I have to avoid. But
Mhm.
then I found out I could eat, it has wheats in the word, buckwheat.
Okay.
And apparently it's not the same as, and I was like, wow. But I learned that and was like, oh, this is a game changer. So buckwheat pancakes were better than having white flour pancakes. So I went to a restaurant and ordered those.
What has been a common, misconception about allergens, when working with that population? Is there just a common just misunderstanding or something
That
that you've noticed?
some of them have no idea what their reactions will be. So they don't know if it's anaphylaxis. They don't know if it's hives. They don't know if it's a bellyache. They just know, oh, I was told to avoid that.
Okay. That's so
And
scary.
I was just going to say that's scary because I knew, because my mom told me from childhood, she always told me, Renee, you're going to have an asthma attack if you eat these things. If
Yeah.
you walk into someone's house and you think you smell seafood or you start wheezing immediately, they must be cooking seafood. You have to get out. I knew. So therefore, I had an EpiPen because I've had an EpiPen since they came out. I think they came out when I was 10. I had an EpiPen, but I had a plan. I always had my inhaler with me. I used to actually carry my nebulizer with me because I had to take breathing treatments all the time. So we always had a plan. But if you have no clue and you have no plan, and unfortunately you hear stories. I interviewed the family of Elijah. Elijah went to preschool, and they knew, they were told, they were trained, and they gave him some peanuts. And I don't know if it was peanut butter, peanuts, and he died. He was
Oh,
3.
God. That's horrible.
Yeah. So it's important for you to make sure that you know exactly what is going on and what will happen, and you have a plan in place. I think at the preschool they waited to give him the EpiPen or something. They called the mom first or something. You can't, and that's the thing. You have to understand you can't wait.
Wait.
You got to do it right away.
One thing that I've noticed, I'm applying for a lot of preschools right now for my son, and most of them are nut-free facilities.
Yes,
So I don't
that's
know
the
if
new
that's a
thing.
new change, but that's definitely the direction that many, many, many schools have gone in lately.
Yeah, and it's not just preschool. There's elementary schools now too that are saying no, you can't bring any snacks to school because you know we just don't know and we just want to be safe.
Yep.
So
Yep, that makes sense. So you mentioned a little bit ago about your sister, Chef Alicia, and so I wanted to pivot slightly to talk a little bit more about food. So as I mentioned in the beginning of our talk, we're adjusting our allergen policy in the workplace, and there's a lot of culinarians that are on the call right now too. So do you have any tips or tricks on innovative and exciting, ways our culinary teams can support users that have allergens for, allergen friendly foods?
so be creative and don't let the sky, like, the sky is your limit. Like, really be creative and figure out a way to make sure it still tastes great, but it's allergy friendly. One of the things that I kind of taught my sister about was aquafaba. She had no idea, and that's one of our videos. We made potato salad that has no eggs, and she made it, and of course she's eaten potato salad I never had, and she ate it and was like, oh my god, this tastes like the real thing. And it blew her mind because she knew then that instead of using mayo, which mayo can be high in cholesterol, um, you know it can be high in calories. So she was like, instead of using mayo, I can use this aquafaba on my sandwiches, in my tuna salad, in my, all these things. Just her eyes were so open. She could not believe how good it tasted. So be very, creative. Don't think inside the box. You got to think outside the box. The brownies we made were brownies made with black beans. Who would have ever thought? Because I can't eat
Mhm.
chocolate.
That's right.
And I, of course, had never had a brownie. She, of course, had. She said they tasted pretty good, considering.
I've had the black bean brownies. They're delicious. When
Right.
they're done well, they can be really, really good.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's all these little things that you can, substitute. Like, who would ever thought black beans for chocolate? Like, but
mhm.
you have to try. And if you try, you might create something. We have French toast without eggs. And you know
Yeah.
what we did? We dipped it in oat milk and cornstarch.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, our food at Google, there's such an emphasis on plant forward cooking. So our teams are constantly being challenged and, inspired to think about, how can we create dishes with like a more of a meat on the side concept. And it seems like a lot of what you're talking about can be applied for both, whether it's plant forward cooking and or, allergen friendly dishes. And I aquafaba is an interesting one. I feel like chickpeas are really everywhere lately, and it's
Yeah.
awesome because I love them, and they're
Mhm.
high in fiber, and they have so many other health benefits. So it's
And
really
that's the
cool to
same
see.
thing like cauliflower. They
Mhm.
have turned cauliflower into chicken, into steak, into mashed potatoes,
Pizza
and
crust.
pizza crust. Exactly. Oh, and then I've seen broccoli bread. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can buy broccoli thins or whatever you want to call them and make sandwiches with it. So
Wow.
you just have to think outside the box and pull it together. I mean, you don't
Mhm.
have to use eggs. You can use flax seeds if mix them up and just let them sit a little bit. Flax seeds can be your egg binder.
That's
Chia
right.
seeds bind really well. They could be your binder. Applesauce. There's so many things.
So if somebody wanted to learn a little bit more, and dig into this, where is there a resource that you have, like a go-to or, any place that you could recommend?
So my favorite place is foodallergy.org, which is FAIR's website, because they update stuff and they have so much information. Like Cheryl said, it is crazy. You could be lost for hours down the rabbit hole, but you can go there and they have lots of great information and resources. That can be very helpful there. Of course, you guys work for Google. Of course, you could Google and you can find lots of other things. But I think foodallergy.org is a great place that brings a lot together. You'll see our show is on there as well. But yeah,
Okay, perfect. So I see a question from Jordan. So
yes.
is self-education your strongest weapon against allergens? Do you find verbal information of dishes can be the most inaccurate format?
I agree with your first thing. Yes, self-education is the biggest thing. You have to know, and you have to you if you talk to the people and ask questions, that is your best thing. Verbal information, you're right. Sometimes things change. What I do is when I'm about to go out, somebody will tell me this is the restaurant we're about to go to. I'll go look it up online, and I'll read the menu, and I'll figure out what I'm going to try and eat. And as long as I don't feel like there's some, crazy whatever going on in the place, I usually will just, that's what I'm deciding. This is what I'm gonna eat, and I go eat that. Otherwise, I might call ahead of time and I might ask them a few questions. Especially if I'm gonna eat fried food. I've been calling recently because everyone likes to use soy oil,
Hmm.
and that is not my friend. So um, I call ahead of time and say, "What do you fry your chicken in? What do you fry your French fries in, or whatever?" But otherwise, unfortunately, a lot of websites for restaurants do not put that up there.
Hmm.
I'm not sure why, but they don't say the oil. And if you're in the South, I realize peanut oil can be very popular for frying things in, and that would kill me. So I call and I ask before I get my taste buds all ready, and then I just knock it out that way. Um, I will say for written information, if it's a restaurant and it's a decent restaurant and they have an up to date website, you can tell it looks like, or Facebook pages are great too. I would trust what they have there because usually that stuff is up to date. Now, if it looks like they haven't touched it in 2 years, then of course, then I would call. But usually that stuff seems to be pretty up to date if it's a pretty, decent restaurant.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you, Jordan. That's a really great question.
It was.
Gosh, wow, that was really fast. So we've already come up to the half hour. So I just want to give a huge thank you to Dr. Renee for sharing her experience and expertise with us. Her website is askdrrenee.info, and I believe Lauren dropped in another link in here. I
Yes,
think.
that's foodallergy.org. That's
Okay,
their
perfect.
website.
For,
Yeah.
for fair, awesome.
Yes.
Um,
And then I wrote a book to help moms and dads, and actually adults with food allergies might find it very helpful too. So I tell you my story, and then I give lots of information about allergies and asthma in here. And then I wrote one for the kiddies because they felt left out. So this is No Renee, You're Allergic, because there was a lot of bullying situations I was hearing about with kids and food allergies. So I wanted to kind of get them in early. This is like kindergarten level, and hopefully they can be friendly to their other friends that might have food allergies, and it'll help them through.
can we learn more about those books from
My website. Yep.
your website? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. All
Yep.
right, so that's the go-to spot. All right. Well, thank you all for attending. It was really great conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Renee.
No, this
And
was awesome. Thanks a lot, and good luck. Look, I might have to ask Cheryl, like, what are some of the recipes you guys come up with?
oh gosh, no, our culinary team is amazing. So
I can only imagine.
yeah, we'll learn
Yeah.
some more for sure. All right. Thank you guys. Good to see you.